Anyway, so today my guest is the wonderful Saima Majid. Saima is awesome beyond words and a true badass in my eyes. As we know, mental health is a really, really massive issue right now. Something like 1 in 4 of us suffer from it. Saima was there too, but she's gone real badass about the whole thing. So we're going to be talking to Saima about that now, so stay listening. Hey Saima, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh my God, have I pronounced your name right now?
Perfect, absolutely perfect.
I'm so over the moon. Saima, thank you so much for joining me, my darling. Saima, listen, will you tell everyone what you do?
So yes, I am a transformational life coach. I'm a holistic personal trainer and a speaker and mental health advocate.
Cool. So there's a few things going on now. I'm going to bring that down to layman terms, if that's okay. So Transformational Life Coach, I think it's quite straightforward. You help people to transform from where they are to where they want to get to.
Absolutely.
And holistic personal trainer, that sounds a little bit different. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so my philosophy on health and wellness is that it has to be mental, emotional and physical. Everything goes hand in hand, and often how we're feeling on the inside is how we will treat ourselves on the outside as well as show up in the world. So in order to look after our physical health, we've got to be feeling good on the inside, and really vice versa as well. So feeling good on the outside makes us then feel good on the inside too.
Fabulous. And you're also a mental health advocate, is that right?
Yes, definitely, yes.
Now, I know you're a mental health advocate because it's something that you personally went through. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Share that story with us.
Yeah, so it was 2014. I was living in London at the time, and I had gone fresh from university to London, gone to work in the fashion industry, really excited, 22 years of age, hungry, ambitious, really open to diversity and learning about other people and the arts. And it was amazing. And the first, 10 years of my life in London were absolutely amazing. But as I got into my 30s, things started becoming more challenging in the workplace as I started progressing upwards, and the politics and things I was exposed to. Also had a lot of people in my life that weren't really serving me, and there was a lot of toxicity. And so in 2014, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And basically I just became a spectator in my, in my own life. So I was literally just watching the world go by and felt like I had absolutely no desire to be a part of it. And, those feelings of numbness and isolation and loneliness, exhaustion, fatigue. And so in 2015, I decided,
go over that before we go any further forward. So during that time, you talked about coming here, and it was exciting, it was fulfilling, it was thrilling, and then you had this situation where you was, like I say, clinically diagnosed with anxiety and what have you. Was it like a sudden change, or was it drip by drip by drip? Did you feel that? And did you feel that deterioration? Just tell us a bit more about the details of what was going on.
No, I think it had been accumulating over a long time. And I think it was part because of my own sort of behaviours as well, because I was a real people pleaser. I wanted to be liked, and be a part of something. And so I tolerated behaviours that maybe I shouldn't have. And it went back to my own self-worth, I suppose. And I wasn't even aware of self-worth, and I didn't even know these were sort of concepts. And they're talked about a lot more now, but it was before Instagram days and quotes and all of that. So I was one of those people that whenever a friend would have a problem, I'd probably be the one saying, don't worry, everything will be all right, and be supportive. And but in the process of sort of being strong, and then there was various life situations, you know, redundancies and what have you. And I think over time it just started sort of beating me down. And I think so it was an eventual, so the depression and life coming to a standstill, you know, it was a gradual process. So
what were some of the things that you were able to do and found yourself less able to do as time was going on, as this was sort of impacting more of your life?
So I was still functioning to an extent. Yeah. So, I mean, I was working as a freelance designer, and my contract had sort of come to an end. And so I would go to the gym, but I'd feel empty. And also I was exhausted. So I wasn't getting anything out of going. Or I'd meet friends, but then just being around people, I'd come home and I just want to sleep for hours. It was like I didn't have a lot of sort of fuel in my tank. So any little that I had was just being given. And so, yeah, I just wanted to sleep all the time. I just felt exhausted.
Yes,
yeah.
Really your body can't speak to you, I reckon, at the time, really, wasn't it, that
Definitely.
you need to rest. And you touched on a really important situation there. If I wonder you expand a bit more on that, because I know it's an area that many people are impacted by, is this whole people-pleasing thing. How did that manifest itself? How did that show up? Why was that almost became a part of your identity, did you think, at the time?
First of all, I'm a really sensitive person, and that comes with its advantages, but it also comes with disadvantages. So the advantages are I'm very creative and sensitive, so I feel very, very deeply, which means that if I go to see a piece of music, I will feel it very visceral, like it will be really go very deep, or a piece of art or theatre or life, you know. But the disadvantages are that I also feel pain very deeply. So if I feel like someone has done a disservice, I will really internalize that. And so, and then, yeah, that sort of kind of real need to be liked and approved of. And that sort of comes from culture and background as well, because, you know, I think in the Asian community, or, you know, generally, loads of us are trying to seek approval, you know, in one way or another, whether it's in the workplace or in the family or what have you. So I think, you know, it comes from quite early on in life, but then I guess I didn't have the tools to be able to deal with it until I became depressed, and until I had to then face everything.
I hear you. I think, have you heard of that term empath before?
Yeah, I'm an empath.
Yeah, because I'm so an empath. Yeah, I could just like
absolutely. Yeah.
Sponges, aren't we? And apparently we attract narcissists as well. So we attract people who will just suck you dry. So no, I really can relate to that. What was interesting as well, you said through your culture, through your Asian culture, you also felt there was maybe a bigger need than most. Are you saying that you felt that you needed to find their approval? Where does that come from? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think in the Asian culture, you know, respect is it features hugely. So respecting others and respecting your superiors, and, you know, and I think what ends up happening often is that boundaries aren't placed. So, you know, when in the process of respecting, sometimes it can sort of go against you. When someone says something out of turn, or, you know, I'll give you an example. In the Asian culture, it's quite normal to say to someone, "Oh, you put weight on." You know? You know, that's normal, you know. And, you know, like when you're quite vulnerable maybe, or sensitive, you know, like that could really hurt.
For real.
Yeah. And so the boundaries there are issues around boundaries. And so I think that's where things get blurred, and and you could be hurting each other without realizing it.
It's funny actually, because British born but a Caribbean culture. But one of the things I love about the African culture, like if I think about my nieces and their children, what have you, they have this big respect. I mean, we have it in our culture, but I think it's thicker, it's bigger, this big boundaries thing. And they call their elders auntie and all the rest. And when they see me, they call me auntie. And I love it. I've always felt like, how wonderful. Yeah. But I also appreciate that with culture, they can, I feel as well like it can also suppress self-expression, because you've got to abide by these rules.
Yes, and that's another thing. There's a lot of rules about what you can and what you can't do, and I guess I'm very lucky in the respect that I got to explore. I was able to leave home from quite a young age, but there were a lot of there was a lot of barriers to get through to get to those places. But eventually it led to a lot of growth, as well. So I wouldn't change it.
Okay. Well, let's move forward a bit now. So you said in 2015, I had interrupted you then. So you'd gone through this, you'd moved to London. Over the years, there was this decline, like I said, through people pleasing, exhaustion, giving too much of yourself and what have you. And you got to this place, you mentioned that you just, was in a terrible place and got diagnosed with this illness, but you were going to move on, say, in 2015. What happened next, should I?
Yeah, so in 2015, there were quite a lot of realizations, but one of them was that I just could not work for another big corporate again. I think that was it for me. I'd done it for a long time, and I couldn't just, I'd worked for all the brands that I wanted to work for, and secondly, I didn't have the stomach for it, and so I knew that it was time for a change, and I knew that I couldn't live in London, and so I decided to move back home where I'm from originally, which is Derby. And so I trained.
At this time you were still unwell, is that right? You're still feeling unwell?
It's really blurry, because it wasn't sort of just, it was sort of up and down. The journey wasn't like down and then I was sort of up and down. So it becomes a little bit blurry at times. I don't actually know how I was feeling at moments.
Yeah.
But I just knew that I couldn't stay in London anymore. And so I had to come up with a plan on how I was going to create a life for myself. And so, being from a fashion background, I decided that I would create a business, creating product, textiles, which is what my passion was. But I also decided to become a personal trainer. And it was almost like that came to me. I was an avid gym goer, was very fit, and I'd had PT, and I guess I watched my PT and thought I could do that.
And a personal trainer, of course. I was going to break that down for people.
Yeah. And also I wanted to work with people, and I wanted something active alongside my sedentary job. So it sort of made perfect sense. So at that point, it was 50-50, and I had no idea which direction that was going to go. So that's what I did when I got back home, and I set up, and it was really nice because it was quiet. I didn't know anyone in Derby. I had one friend, that was it, because my life had been so different. And so it was really nice just to focus and be quiet for a while, and just focus on work and getting myself well. And then things started, really picking up, and work was going well. And then in 2017,
and before you go to that, was it by this stage you had been diagnosed with being?
Yes.
You had. Okay, my darling. Yeah. But things were still up and down, or what have you. But then, if I write,
by 2017, I would say that I was a lot better. I was a lot better. Yeah.
I love that, Saima. Sorry to interject you, because I sometimes say to people, growth isn't a straight line like a chart, like the books and the films. It does that, doesn't it? It's like a ziggy effect.
Yeah.
So, I didn't realise out of your story that it went down at the time it was going up. But then you had some suddenly bad news, didn't you? Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah, so in 2017, one of my best friends took her own life. And so that just turned my world upside down because, A, I had no idea that she had been suffering so much because it was a secret. And secondly, I guess where my story became a positive, those, when we talk about, from pain comes light, and dark. Well, this wasn't that. This didn't end well, and so at that point, I hadn't been speaking much about my own. I'd been talking on social media about meditating and looking after mental health, but I'd never spoken about my own mental health or my own journey. But after that happened, it was like, I've got no choice. I've got to now start speaking up. And so straight after that, it was World Mental Health Day, and I did a campaign where I designed slogan T-shirts like the one that I'm wearing, which says, "My vulnerability is a strength." Mm-hmm. And I had loads of different people wearing them, these T-shirts, and then I created a video, and then, I got featured in local press, and then since that day, I've been campaigning, writing articles, and just really talking very openly and very, with transparency about my own journey.
And sorry, just before you carry on, you talked about your friend committing suicide, and you then feel you had no choice. And I wanted to go back to that because I just feel that was such a powerful thing to do for me. I think it was such a powerful thing to do for that because it could have hit you and you could have gone spiraling down again somewhere. That could have been the effect. But instead you did something quite badass in my view, and you thought, you see it as no choice. And I think when people do badass things, I always see it as no choice. That they didn't have a choice, but you would have had a choice actually. But you chose something in you, something strong in you. So actually I'm going to use this to make a difference, make a change. And what I think is really powerful, which is why I didn't want it zoomed past. I wanted to bring you back. Super powerful. And so, because you said you hadn't spoken about your own journey before. You spoke about meditation, you spoke about, fitness and all the rest of it, but you didn't tell anyone, this is what I have been through. And that's a massive big deal, because that's now preparing to fight that stigma in its face. Do you know what I mean? Face that stigma, because there is stigma around it.
You know what I mean? And absolutely.
Stigma, obviously, it's a stigma that silences us. And you decided, I'm not going to do it. And I know many people in that position. So would you mind, the very first time you went out there and you said publicly, I have been through this? How did that feel in your chest? How was that moment?
I think initially, because I remember going to a social media workshop when I had my scarf business. And at that time, I remember it was about your story, and it was about sharing your story and how powerful in business it is to share your story. And I remember having a conversation with the guys that were running the workshop about my story and how nervous I was about and whether I should share it or not. This was before my friend took her own life, but I was saying that, as a brand, I feel that I'll get judged, and I don't know whether I should be sharing my story. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. And they said, there's nothing wrong with sharing your story, but you've got to be in the right place. So you've got to be emotionally in the right place. And so I didn't. And then after my friend passed away, the first time I shared my story was in a blog post. So I write a blog. I haven't written a post in a while, but I write a blog, and it said how, and this was a while after she'd passed away. It was a while after, and the title was How My Mental Illness Led to the Creation of a Beautiful Life and Business. And it got the most readership that any blog that I'd ever written before. And I had people privately email me, people that I'd worked in the fashion industry with, and people that I'd met in London, and people shared their own story and said, Well, the first thing people said was, wow, amazing. And secondly, people started opening up about their own journey. And I guess that I wasn't really looking for validation at all. I just wanted to share it. But it was really interesting. And so, but at that point in time when I shared that, I had no fear. I had absolutely no fear. No, I had no fear.
You didn't hesitate over the send button then or anything like that?
No.
Like, bang.
Bang. Literally. Yeah. Absolutely not.
Amazing. That is amazing. Yeah. And you've hit on a really interesting point there, because I sometimes I teach storytelling and that kind of thing to and what have you. And I've actually got a blog post of this myself where I actually say to people, like, you know, they've got their handbags and stuff like that. It's like, no one's interested in your handbags. I want to know about the story. Yeah. They're like, I want to talk about myself, I want to talk about my bags. No one's interested. No one's interested. They want your story. And like you said, that's where you got your that's where, you know, that tension come from. But it's wonderful to know at that point you just didn't give a damn.
No, I mean, I spent a long time creating the article because I wanted the article to be just right. So I put a lot of hours into writing it, but I wasn't afraid of sending it at all.
Wow. And thinking about how powerful you felt then, how did that compare to your most, to say your darkest moment? How were the two?
Stark contrast. Stark contrast. In my darkest moments, I felt powerless, like I had no control over my own life. I didn't really care about life. Whereas what my mental illness and my friends passing gave me was a purpose and an inner strength. And you know, I mean, it wasn't plain sailing. There was a lot of work that was done, loads of work on myself. And like I said, gradual process, lots of reading, therapy, meditating, loads. But eventually I got to a place that I never would have imagined. Never would have imagined that I would have ended up being in that place after a mental illness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think when you are in I mean, gosh, you know, I've had dark moments, you know, but like I said, you were clinically prescribed as not being well. And I could just imagine if I just take my darkest moments and treble that, you know, because then when you're on those dark moments, it can just feel like you just can lose hope that there can be a better tomorrow. It can be crippling. And like you said, I bet you never imagined in a million years you can feel so low to then feeling so strong and powerful and amazing. That's awesome.
And the thing is, every day is different. And I'm not saying that now I never have low days, because I do.
Of course.
I do. And, you know, and some days are a battle. But on those positive days, my growth has been huge, and I could feel like I could take over the world on good days. You know what I mean? And I think, it's about self-esteem and how I view myself now.
Yeah. You know? And those days are what I call incubation days, the days when I still have those low days or what have you. The days when I need to incubate and just be down for a bit. And then you come back bigger and stronger. So
absolutely,
there's still, you know, life is cycles, right? So and something we've also spoken about in the past was that our stories were kind of opposite. Was that I said that I was mentally strong but broke down physically because I wasn't doing exercise and all the rest of it, but you felt the other way, that you were physically strong but wasn't mentally strong. And I thought that was quite an important area to touch on, because there are many people who were, you know, physically fit and, you know, slim, you know, stereotypically slim and all the rest of it, who are still facing these issues. And people sometimes, people can't understand it, because I think, but you have it all, you're perfect. How come you're still having these problems? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because the thing is, it's on a soul level, and no exercise is gonna get deep into the depths of your soul. And the thing is, we store memories, in our subconscious from when we're children. And if those memories aren't processed, if, any adversity isn't processed properly, it just sits inside. And so that's where the issues start. That's where low self-esteem, and often then people will use, various coping mechanisms to make themselves feel better. And so it's about going inwards, and it's about really accessing your inner self and, working through that. And then that's where you're really going to blossom. So you could be beautiful on the outside, but still have that darkness sitting inside of you.
But many people are afraid to face those ghosts, aren't they, Harley? They're afraid of what might come out without realising that it is actually manifesting in their life anyway, kind of unconscious level.
Yeah.
People are really terrified of going deep and, lifting up the rug, having a peep.
Yeah. It's not easy.
It's not easy, no.
It's painful to go there, and it takes a lot of courage. But then the rewards are huge. So,
I say, everyone should have therapy. I say everyone should have therapy.
Yeah, but why unnecessarily suffer? And
how much does culture play a part in this? Like, how does stereotype? I mean, we shouldn't generalise, I know, and I hate generalising, but how much does culture play a part in us struggling to go deep, to go within ourselves? I mean, within your culture or Pakistani community, what have you, are people becoming more open about speaking about things like mental health and all the rest of it? Or is it still like, no, it's all very perfect?
Yeah, it's that. I think there's a lack of education, and there's a lack of awareness of sort of the inner self. There is, and emotional intelligence. And I think these things need to be taught. And I think we touched upon it before, but it goes from generation to generation. So the previous generations who were taught just to get on with life will then pass it on to the next and to the next and to the next until that cycle is broken. And so where like our ancestors would have grown up in poverty, emotions would have been a luxury. Food on the table, that would have been a necessity. Then when my parents came, again, it was a struggle. There was racism when they came to this country. They came with nothing. It was all about building. And so again, it was like, just get on with it. And then again, that's sort of passed on. But, eventually it has to be addressed, or just keep continuing where people are suffering in silence.
Yeah. And you talked about self-love. That was just a term that you wasn't used to. I still feel people think like, what is this self-love?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
So I think, self-love doesn't mean that you don't give to anyone else, but you can't give to anyone else if you're empty inside. You can't give authentically. And you might give, but you'll be resentful for it without even realizing. So self-love is first being full inside. And that will include how you talk to yourself, how you view yourself. That will include resting when you need to. So there is how you're nurturing yourself, the food that you eat, the exercise, meditation, the relationships that you have. So we're all worthy of having good relationships in our lives. Yet so many of us put up with negative relationships because of that self-worth, of that lack of self-love. So that's basically what self-love to me is. And then when you give from that place, when you love yourself and your heart's full and your soul's full, it's so much more beautiful and powerful.
Yeah, I hear you, my darling. And not selfish, like they like us to like they're like,
No.
it's for me. No, of
And
course.
I think it's beautiful to give. I think it's lovely, and I think it's very rewarding when you give back. But just do it when you're fully full yourself, you know.
And what advice would you give to, without, I'd like to get 3 tips from you in a moment, but we do have this thing, Han, where the internet is everywhere.
Yeah.
When I was younger, everyone was addicted, like my friends were addicted to magazines, and they'd look at those magazines, compare themselves, and would, basically lose their confidence as a result of that. Whereas I was just saw magazines as a bit of fun, a bit of, it's like a fairy tale story. You have a look at it in the doctor's surgery. But that's why I was quite I had other issues going on, of course. I was quite fortunate in that I wasn't impacted that way. One of my concerns with the internet, I thought, crikey, back in my day, it was just the magazines which you had to go out and purchase. Do you know what I mean? Now those imageries are there every day, bombarded every minute in your face, this perfect life. And people know that it's not real. So there's no point in us saying to them, it's not real. They know, but it goes through the back door, doesn't it, into your subconscious and all the rest of it. Like I said, 1 in 4 people suffer from mental health at the moment, Han. These images now are in their faces every single day. What do you think about that? And how is this going to help us to create a better tomorrow when we're fighting this juggernaut of negativity in its own way?
Yeah, I think it's a huge issue. I definitely do think it is. Because it's noise. It's noise, and noise is not productive. It's a constant distraction from where you're going. So I think it's about educating, and it's about, if you can't get away from social media, especially if you're an entrepreneur, but culturally as well. Now everyone's on social media. So it's really, really about following people who inspire you, and use social media to your advantage. And then teaching our youth about self-love and being worthy, so that they don't have to then try and be validated by posting certain images and I just feel like if you're on social media, just keep on your own trajectory. Try, just keep people who are aligned with your mission. Don't be following people who are not aligned, because it will impact you subconsciously. And just keep very focused. And then we've just got to educate. We've just got to educate.
Yeah. And how much does your mindfulness help in terms of, I know you're big on mindfulness and meditation and that kind of thing. How much does that help you, do you think, to not absorb this noise?
I think the thing with the noise is, I don't think the mindfulness stops you from absorbing it as such. I think you've got to put actions in place. So you've got to not follow people. You've got to control how much you go on social media. So they're responsibilities. What the mindfulness and meditation does is that when you feel chaos, when the noise gets too much, it just brings you back to yourself, grounds you, and it roots you and centers you. And so for me, with my business, sometimes I know what my why is. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I'll go on social media and there'll be someone with a really shiny account and I'll be like, panic, I'm not like that. And then all of a sudden, I've gone off on a different trajectory. And so when I go back to my meditation, I'm like, oh, okay, now I know why I'm doing this, who I am, what I'm about. I'm not like those other people, I'm not like X, Y, and Z, and that's okay. You know what I mean? So
I love that, you, Saima, and you just say it like it's nothing. Like, you just keep it so real. I go on there, Ingrid, I'm not like that. Blah blah. Okay, this is what I do, and you just you speak it like normal. Whereas some people just be like so terrified to admit that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just love you. Just this is at the time. This is how I dealt with it. You just keep your shit so real, and I absolutely.
Yeah. There's no point. Not really.
Yeah. Whereas I look at them and I just think, oh, what utter nonsense. Next, let me find some meaningful shit. You're really wonderful. Thank you so very much. I'd love you to share with everyone, my darling, and share my audience, your audience, and everyone out there who is silently suffering in one way or another. What would be your 3 badass, radical self-love tips?
So my 3 badass self-love
Radical
tips.
Self-love. Rad. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I think put yourself first. Stop putting everyone else before you, because that's probably the reason why you've probably ended up there in the first place. So you've got to now stop putting yourself first. Don't feel bad about investing in a therapist or, you know, investing in a gym membership, or just do it, get yourself better. Second one would be patient. It's not going to be plain sailing. There's going to be ups and downs on that road, you know. And thirdly, one of my, this is huge, is invest in your development going forward too. So read sort of, listen to podcasts, read books on how you can grow and develop and be true to yourself going forward. So yeah, they're my 3 self-love tips.
Fab. So we've got put yourself first, guys. Invest in a therapist if you need to be, or what have you, and really invest in your personal development, like invest in time out to do that. I think that's awesome, honey bun.
Things that make you feel alive, things that make you feel really, really good. Don't feel guilty about it, you know? Yeah.
Okay, wicked. And will you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, be empowered by you, because powerful you certainly are, be empowered by you, how they can listen to more of what you do and hear your, and what, like something I love about is your authenticity, your vulnerability, you keep it real, and people need to hear more of that so they know that they're not alone. So tell us about this Trailblazers thing that you do and how we can get in touch and just be in Saima's world.
Right. So if you want to get in contact, so my website is www.saimamajid.uk, no code, just .uk, and then my Instagram handle is saimamajid.uk. I run a 6-weekly event in Derby called the Trailblazers Journey, and it's a networking event like no other, I call it. So basically the whole purpose of it is to create meaningful friendships and relationships. So it's not your typical where you go, you're sort of looking at who's going to, you know, advance my career. You're literally there for the people. We also have speakers every 6 weeks who share their journey to where they've got to, and often it's through adversity that journey has taken place and where they've got to. So it's about really educating, but also being authentic. So I've got a page called the Trailblazers Journey. And then third, I've got an ebook called People Pleaser to Trailblazer, which can be downloaded by my website and my Instagram link tree. So yeah, if you want to hear more.
I'm sure they will. I think you're tremendously badass, my darling. You're definitely a badass gal. I love you to pieces, and I'm going to keep following you. And just thank you all for what you do, my darling. You're such an inspiration. You really are. Thank you so very much. All right, my lovely.
Oh, thank you. Bye.